Imagine being called the best German talent in a whole generation. Imagine being the poster boy of a country that was going through a rough time in football. Imagine having the pressure of dragging your nation back to the top of football at 19. Could you handle that? This is what the hero of today's story was labeled at. At the start of the millennium, Sebastian Deisler was one of the young superstars of the sport. The hype surrounding Deisler in the early stage of his career was huge. However, just a few years later, Sebastian Deisler tragically retired at the young age of 27. But the question is, what happened to Sebastian Deisler? Well, stick around to find out. Right, so the story of Sebastian Deisler is one of the saddest tales in German football. To understand the story of Sebastian Deisler, you gotta go to a different time in football. To understand how important he was to the German football, we need to go back all the way to the 90s. A generation that had Lothar Matthäus and Jürgen Klinsmann won the World Cup in 90 and the Euros in 96. Unfortunately for German football, the generation that came after that was quite mundane at best. German football was crying for a talent to come up and take them back to the glorious years. And it was in these conditions that Sebastian Deisler made his debut at the age of 18 at Mönchengladbach. He was young, he was creative, and he was so versatile. And almost instantly, you could see that there was no one really like him. Things were going well for him. But then, Deisler was to suffer his first serious injury to his right knee, which left him out for a very long time. After his comeback, he continued to shine, and his talent was quite obvious to see. Soon he moved to Hertha Berlin, where he had the chance to shine in the largest stage of them all, the Champions League. Being at the heart of Hertha Berlin's attack, this is where Deisler really launched himself to the limelight. He was the man who German football was depending on to launch their dominance once again. Things were going well for Deisler until it happened. The injury every footballer fears the most, an ACL tear and a long spell on the sideline. This was a second serious injury for a player who was still a teenager. Football fans began to wonder whether Deisler could come back strong after his injury, but indeed he returned. But it wasn't long until he had another knee injury which made him miss the remainder of the season and most importantly, the World Cup in summer 2002. Despite a checkered fitness record, his talent was still clear to see, to the point that Bayern Munich signed him for the next season. So much was his potential that it didn't prevent Bayern Munich to come calling. From outside looking in, it seemed like the world was at his feet, but things were about to get dark in the world of Sebastian Deisler. And before we talk about what happened to Deisler at Bayern Munich, don't forget to leave a like or comment. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm as a lot of time goes into making these videos. In summer 2002, Deisler was given a massive opportunity at one of the world's biggest clubs. He arrived in Bayern on crutches as his troubles with the right knee still remained. And if this wasn't bad enough, in 2003 he was also diagnosed with cancer. He was given time off from football to recover from this. Unfortunately, it was also around this time that he was diagnosed with depression as well. After a brief return and relapse, Deisler finally looked ready to break into the Bayern squad. It was only around 2004 to 2006 when he was relatively injury-free. A return to the German national team was a strong possibility. However, fate can be a cruel mistress, and in March 2006, it dealt another blow to Sebastian Deisler. Another knee injury meant that he was gonna miss the World Cup in home soil. This was his second World Cup that he was missing due to knee injuries. Germany went on to the semi-finals without their once golden boy. Between his failing knee and battling his depression, he seriously thought about leaving football for good. He came back to the squad in November 2006, but deep down, he knew he lost a battle. And this is when, at the age of 27, he sadly announces his retirement from football. Deisler was one of the finest football players that Germany produced at his time. Unfortunately, despite the enormous potential, Deisler lost the battle to his failing body and his depression. The story of Sebastian Deisler is a sad one, but it was also important in raising awareness of depression in football, as the sport was moving really fast towards modernization. At the end of the day, the heroes on the pitch are just human, with the same weakness and stress that we're all faced with. The difference is that they have to do it in the full stare of an unforgiving publicity. And the story of Sebastian Deisler should serve as a reminder of that. So, what do you think about the story of Sebastian Deisler? Personally, I love talking about football stories because, let's face it, football is far more than 22 people just kicking a ball. There are countless stories within the beautiful game. Many beautiful ones, and sadly, some tragic ones as well. which is why I started this channel to tell stories like this in the way that I do. Is there a football story that you'd like me to cover in a video? Let me know in the comment section below, but be nice to each other. I'm Football Drawn, and I like to tell football stories with comic and drawings. If you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of the channel as well.